set, brand new set, and we could only usher it in with our fabulous guest, Claudia and Vasco. Claudia, how are you?
Yay, I'm great. I didn't realize I was
We're gonna break in the new couches, the new microphones, we've got new rugs, we've got new furniture, everything. And so I'm so ecstatic over to be here. I want to tell everyone really quickly that this is show number 45. We are 45 shows here at the Maximo Show at VodPod Media. So big shout out to everybody that's believed in us, everyone that has commented, everyone that's liked and shared, everyone. I got a phone call today from one of my homegirls in Michigan that went to school here in college. She goes, I've been watching everything you're doing. I'm so proud of you. I was like, bro, that's enough right there to just say, hey, we're going to keep doing this. We're going to keep telling our stories, highlighting our champions, talking about leadership, all of the things that exist in our community, and doing it here on the front line. We do it really big. We do it real professional. Someone the other day asked me to do a promo for them. We did a really professional promo, and they're like, wow, we didn't expect all that. It's because we do it proper. We got to do it proper. We got to give the best to all of our people. Jaden asked me earlier, so he's like, do you dress like this every time you have a show? Well, maybe. Because the presentation is important.
Yeah.
And so we're going to get into a little bit more about that. But thank you all so much for watching. Again, it's a great night to have a great night. And I got to say what's up to Claudia. Claudia from the Public Theater of San Antonio, the Executive Artistic Director. Did I say that correctly?
You did. That's my bad.
That's what I'm talking about. The delivery. And you look great tonight. Look at those earrings.
Because my mom and my dad were trying to give my sister and I opportunities that they didn't get growing up poor and not really connected to the arts. And early on, I said, all right, I think I want to do theater. I want to be an actor. What is that going to look like? And I went to college, left Texas, and then spent 15 years. Oh,
No
no,
way.
what happened?
The music delay?
Yeah, like it was.
Y'all can hear everything. You want to start again right now?
Yeah, just start from the top.
And we're live, everyone. Welcome to the show. My name is Maximo, your host. I use the pronouns he, him, his, and I'm ecstatic over the moon to be with y'all tonight. As always, if you've been watching and you've seen a little bit of what we've done, you got to know that we're live. We do this live every week. So I tell people I love doing shows live because that's how you know who's really talented, which is why I love theater.
Yeah, it's all live.
Got to do it live. You get one take, one chance. And so if you're watching us, you're just joining us right now. This is show 45 here at VodPod Media. It's been a true pleasure to bring our best every week, highlighting our stories, talking to our champions, our leaders in the community, people that are doing meaningful, purposeful, inspired, and driven work. And I'm here with none other than Claudia and Vasco, the Artistic Executive Director at the Public Theater of San Antonio.
Yes.
Which, my gosh, I said it all again just right. I nailed it.
Well, Executive Artistic Director.
So that's what I was wondering. I wanted to get that right. I'm big on that.
Yeah, well, that's it. Executive Artistic Director. Basically, I'm doing two jobs.
Yeah.
Artistic Director, Executive Director.
Well, hey, too much who's given as much as expected, right?
That is the truth.
So for our viewers and our audience that don't know you just yet, Claudia, tell us a little bit about who you are and all of your grandeur with those beautiful earrings. If you didn't see the earrings, take a look at those earrings, those hummingbirds. But yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself, and thank you for being here tonight.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. I also use not also, but my pronouns are she, hers, ella. And I guess my story is that I grew up in Houston, Texas, and grew up to an immigrant dad and a mom who was from San Antonio. but they both had humble beginnings, and they were trying to give me and my sister some opportunities. So they found all these camps, like arts camp, theater camp, and I caught the theater bug early on. So I took off to another state, studied acting, and I realized I think this is going to be my career. And I spent 15 years in Hollywood. Hustling, because I did theater, film, TV, worked in nonprofit, leadership, did some campaign work, did some radio, and was really trying to piece together a career out there, which is really hard because they just came out with a report last week again about who the least represented people in Hollywood are, and it's Latinos again.
Yeah.
We're the least hired behind the camera and in front of the camera. It's a true thing in theater as well. So I managed to piece together and hustle a career out there for a while until last year when I found out about this job to run the Public Theater San Antonio, which happens to be the only professional union theater in South Texas. And it's a special thing to be able to come here and basically do my dream job. I just get to make plays.
Yeah, and you've done a good job already because you're just coming off your first full season, correct?
Yes, well, we just launched the season, my first season that I got to curate. Yeah, but the season ends in August, but we're already 3 shows in. Yeah, and it's been going way better than I expected.
Because you never really know what you're going to get when you're coming into a new job, a new space, right? Navigating all of the different things that you have to do, right? I mean, you know, the theater has been around for a long time.
Yes. So our theater, the company itself has been around for 100 years. The building has been around for almost 100 years. So we're the longest running theater in Texas. And for these past 100 years, it's primarily only served one audience. So when I got hired, and I'm the first Latina artistic director at this theater in our 100-year history, one of the things I said was, I don't understand why we're not doing work that's connected to more people in San Antonio. Yeah. So aside from just the regular leadership stuff, that a new leader comes in, you're figuring it out, getting to know people, I was also trying to basically change our whole vision and mission. You know, who are we really serving? What kind of programming are we doing? And that was the scary part, because I planned a season that was more diverse. We just produced our first ever show written by a Latin American writer in our 100-year history. And, you know, you don't know how those things are going to go. I'm like, are people going to show up? You know, the Latinos haven't felt welcome. Are they going to come? And the other folks that have been here are expecting a certain kind of show. And it ended up being more successful than I could have imagined.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so did you feel like you might have been like shaking things up a bit?
You know, that's the theme of the season. So I hope so. Literally, I said last year, the theme is shaking things up, breaking with tradition. So we picked shows that were going to do that. And that's exactly what I was trying to do. But also trying to give our audiences some of what they want and expect, because I know that I have to basically unite us, you know, provide stuff for new folks, but also keep our older, our loyal patrons interested.
Yeah, so let's go back and let's jump forward. So you mentioned Latina.
Yeah.
You mentioned you're the first Latina in this position. How do you personally identify? I know you're from Houston, spent some time in LA. You know, our people are all over the Southwest, right? I mean, how do you identify? You said your mother was from Mexico. Is that what you said?
Yes. Well, my mother was from San Antonio. My dad is from Mexico. I mean, I identify as Latina, Mexican American. Chicana to some degree, but I think Tejana makes more sense for me. And it's interesting because while I lived in California, you know, our communities are so different. If you're from Chicago, if you're from Arizona, if you're from Texas and California, and I definitely still felt a connection to the Latino community out there, but it's different to be a Tejana. And I joke, I say that this is why Hollywood gets the Selena TV shows and movies wrong, because they don't understand the particular identity of being Mexican American and here, this sort of the overlap of Texas identity. Yeah. And also the fact that for a lot of our ancestors and families, the border crossed us, you know, we weren't immigrants.
Yeah, it's complicated, but it's fun though.
Yeah.
You know, when you're in the community, it's tough not to get painted with such a broad brush from people on the outside. But at the same time, you know, our communities are so diverse. I find our communities are truly loving and welcoming, accepting. So anytime we got to talk about it, we'd like to talk about it, you know, and highlight the you know, the differences, you know, the similarities, you know, the disparities even as well, because that's a part of it in this country, being underrepresented. You mentioned your desire to serve the community with these shows. Now let's talk a little bit about storytelling inside the Latino community, or the Latinx, Latina community, however we may identify it, because that is a huge way, or a big way, as we people of color tell our stories, right? Communicate to our children, stories of our ancestors, so on and so forth.
So the question?
The question is like just the importance of storytelling, right?
Yeah.
That how we've relied on these stories for the most part to talk about them and tell them to our future kids and all of those things.
Yes, I talk about my purpose in the theater, and it's not as simple as, I always felt like I wanted to tell plays. It's more about the significance of storytelling in our experience as humans, that we've been doing it since our indigenous ancestors were telling stories, creating mythology to help us understand the human experience. And so many people have religion that uses storytelling to also teach and guide people. And so for me, the theater and TV and film is a continuation of that. Is sometimes it's for joy and entertainment, and sometimes it's to reflect ourselves back to each other, to help us understand, to connect. Certainly, there's a similarity to going to church and going to the theater. You're going to a space, you're sitting in communally with a bunch of people in the audience, feeling similar feelings about these stories being told on the stage. And I joke with my dad, because my dad is a minister. And I say, we kind of have the same job, we have these buildings and people give donations, and we essentially give these messages from the front and hope that we're moving and inspiring people. And so for me, that producing the storytelling is sacred. It means a lot more than just sort of entertainment.
Yeah, it's a big responsibility too, because you're putting together a season, right? You're casting actors, you're making choices with directors and whatnot, and you have a responsibility to uphold the standards of the theater, redefine or perhaps reinforce who you all are as a theater and the mission and all of those things.
Yeah.
You mentioned things have been going great, but tell us what have been some of the challenges that you've had, and perhaps how did you overcome them this year already? Because the season's young, but you still have a ways to go, and it sounds like things are going good.
They are so far. I think the biggest challenge is change, because I know that I want to do change, and it's easy to go, well, let's change everything fast. But with change, I want to make sure that the community that we already have is coming with us to show them, hey, this is where we're going, and we want you to come with us, and we're also giving you things that you connect with. And also, we need to start breaking down some barriers and starting to tell different stories.
Yeah.
So I would say some of the biggest challenges I've faced is really helping our community understand that culturally specific work isn't just for the Latinx or Hispanic community, but it's for everybody. There's still this feeling when it comes to TV, film, and theater, because this is also true in Hollywood, where producers think, well, if it's about a Latino family, this story is just for Latinos, but the white stories are for everybody. And I'm like, look, I've had to stretch my imagination to connect with those white stories. I didn't grow up in the white experience. And other people can also stretch their imaginations and empathy to connect with our stories. And that's what we saw with American Mariachi, which we did. We closed about a month and a half ago, is that people of all different cultures were connecting with that story, with that family, with the music, even though it centered Mexican American culture.
Yeah. And I tell this to people all the time too, is that like, we are the culture, right? There's really no difference between us and anyone else when it comes to us in this country, right? It's very difficult when you think about colonization, you think about American Indian people here and the Spanish and how we've merged, and then borders changing, but our people are just as ingrained in this country, perhaps more than anybody, if we really want to say who has a stake in it. So our stories today are just a reflection of our experience here.
This is what excited me about coming to San Antonio from LA, because I said, here is an opportunity. There's this conversation in Hollywood and theater about diversifying and about doing all these changes at predominantly white institutions, which ours was. And I said, if there's any place that can make that change, it's San Antonio, because you cannot separate
It's true,
our experience, which happens to be an experience of a blend of cultures, because even our African American culture is so deep in Texas history, for better, for worse, but also the indigenous history of our state, and the our own colonized Mexican American history, where we're both indigenous and colonizer in our roots. And if there's any place where all these cultures come together, that I felt like this is where we want to try some of these changes, some bold moves in how we produce theater, then this is it. And that was scary, because I came and I said, I don't know if it's going to work. I'm going to try it. But so far, the amount of support we've gotten and the success of the work we've done has been really tremendous. and it's what keeps me going.
Good, good. Well, I'm cheering for you. I know people, our viewers are cheering for you. We've got people chiming in already. Shelly Chance chimes in, looking sharp as always, my friend. I don't know if she's talking about you or me, but Shelly, thanks so much. We've got other people viewing in. Hey, we've got other people chiming in as well. Mickey Sweet and Pearl, my family, welcome. Thank you for viewing. We've got supporters that chime in every week from all over the country.
That's great.
But a big viewing here in San Antonio. If you're watching this, go ahead and like, comment, share, subscribe. Also subscribe to the Public Theaters page, wherever you may be on social media, your social media platform of choice. I want to talk a little bit about, you've got an impressive bio. You've sent me your resume and I was impressed by it. But let's talk a little bit about your, we talked about inspirations and purpose-driven work. What are your motivations? Why do you get up every morning and do what you do? Who has inspired you to come out here and live this life?
Oh, I used to think I knew what that answer was. And then 5 years ago, I became a mom.
Ooh.
And I was also one of those people that years ago I was like, I'm never going to be a mom. And then I met my husband and I was like, I'm going to be a mom with this man. And then we had kids and I was also like, I'm not going to change who I am, even though I become a mom. And the truth is there's no way around it. It changed me dramatically. And it really reorganized my priorities and my understanding of what I wanted to do with my life. And one of those biggest changes was that I was a creative practitioner myself. I was an actor and a performer. And right around the time that I had my kid, I really said, I don't know if this is enough for me. And not just because I don't like performing. I love performing and I miss it. But because having my kids suddenly made me want to make the world a better place for them to grow up into. And what I saw, my kids are mixed race. I said, this world still isn't going to be easy for them. And if they want to work in my industry or in other industries that are also having issues with inclusion and racism, they're going to struggle unless I start putting the work behind it or purpose behind my work, which I would say they're the reason I get up every morning. They're the reason that I'm trying for the big change.
Good for you.
And it keeps me motivated because they didn't ask to be here. I brought them here. And this is the world I brought them into. And I'm going to try to make it as a better place,
Good for you.
As cheesy as that sounds, I never thought I'd be a mom to be like, oh, my kids, I wake up for my kids. But that's who I've become.
So you're not the first Latina that I've had on this show that has told me the exact story.
I'm not surprised. Because it's our culture who, I had a tia, my great aunt. Her name was Tia Amparo. And she nannied me when I was little. But she was my grandmother's sister. And she never got married, never had kids, but spent her life taking care of us. She was my nanny for a while. And then took care of my great-grandmother till she died. And at her funeral, people would talk about how she nunca se realizó como mujer. She never realized herself as a woman. Never.
Jeez.
And oh God, it made me so sad and angry because I thought what they would say is she never got married, never had kids, and that's why she wasn't a woman.
Jeez.
And I thought, here she was taking care of all of us and take care of me and made our lives possible. And she was a poet. She used to write poetry and perform it at work. And I said, how is that not enough? I stormed out of there. I remember I was like, that's it. I'm not going to be a mother. And it was because our value, I feel oftentimes in the Latino culture, whether it's Mexican American or even some of the other nationalities, the value of women is so much tied to being caregivers and mothers that I think a lot of us are rebelling against it now.
Yeah. And listen, there's certainly a lot to be said about, women's rights, women, taking a stance over their bodies over the last couple of months, particularly in Texas.
Yeah.
And I think that, I find it tough for working mothers and women who have to, juggle and decide, right? You talked about, loving acting, and maybe even having to decide, where do I spend my time at right now? Because there's only so many hours in a day.
Yeah.
And, gosh, I wish we could just be everywhere at once and do it all. Yeah.
It's definitely been hard on my kids taking this job because it's a lot of nights. Mm-hmm. And I'm the jefa. I'm the main one in charge. So I put in a lot of time and a lot of work, but I'm hoping that I'm hoping that I could show my two sons, I have two boys, what it looks like to have an empowered woman in their lives who has a career and who can also be a caregiver and a mother, in hopes that they can also have a different perspective on identity, and women's identity and the role of women and men when they grow up. So I'm hoping that I can lead that by example.
I think you will too, and y'all are doing a good job, because they're looking up to people that are making moves and doing it for the right reasons. How you have integrity, it sounds like. You're leading with passion, and that stuff rubs off.
Yeah.
So
another thing I'm trying to do is, one thing we're trying to do at the theater is change it to be a caregiver-friendly organization.
Wow.
Which I think is a super elder millennial sort of thing, which I am. Is, I said, I'm a mom, and I'm going, there's no way we can keep this culture of work, 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 be here all these hours. If your kid gets sick, too bad. Figure out who picks them up. So the culture that I'm trying to sort of foster at our theater is one of understanding that people have families, and they might not be a parent, they might be a caregiver to an elder, but that we have these whole lives, and if we don't feel safe and taken care of in our personal lives, then we don't end up being good workers anyway. So it behooves us as leaders and as business owners and CEOs of organizations, executive artistic directors, to care about the whole person, and that means to make it friendly for parents.
Well, yeah, particularly if you're dealing with, you would think that everyone would center their children's lives, as a parent, but some people don't, right? Some people, their kids are not the first priority, unfortunately, right? For whatever reason, better or for worse, but the other aspect about it is this country will work you to death if you let it.
And that's what I mean. And it won't change until we start going, we're not going to do that at our workplace.
There you go.
And it's hard because the ingrained culture in us is work, 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 stay here extra hours. And certainly a lot of our systems are set up in place to require people to work those extra hours. So how do you balance that out when things need to get done? But we're working on it, not perfect. I have to sneeze all of a sudden.
Go ahead, get it out. Shout out to all of our people watching. If you're watching this, tell us how you juggle. If you're a parent, an elder, a Theo, a mentor, how are you juggling your life with giving back to our future? Because let's be honest, man, these young kids need us.
Yeah.
I've got a young lady who's my goddaughter that I need to reconnect with, and I'm going to give her we're going to do FaceTime here probably tomorrow. I got her number, just got sent to me. We got to reconnect. We've got to center our kids' lives and do what's right for them and all of those things. It's super important. They got to be reminded that we love them.
Yeah.
And we've got to be tender and caring and nurturing with all of that, because this world will chew you up and spit you out if you let it.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, we do have to make the world better for them. And I think, it starts with the adults.
Yeah.
And it's not just about how we behave at home, but also what we're doing at work and how we're trying to change the world around them.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about the rest of the season.
Yeah.
We got the rest of this season that ends in roughly almost 10 months, 12 months, 11 months or so. Tell us what you got planned for the next couple of shows. What's on the stage right now?
Yeah, so we open A Christmas Carol next Friday, the day after Thanksgiving. And if you're in San Antonio, we have a pay what you will deal, so you can choose whatever ticket price you want. The lowest is $5. But the projects that are really cool that are coming up, one of them is called Fabulous Monsters, and that's a world premiere that we are working on with a playwright out of LA. Her name is Diana Burbano, and she wrote this play about women in punk music. And the cool thing is then we reached out to punk band Fea, that's a San Antonio based.
Yeah, come on now.
Them. And we asked them to write the music for the show, and they did. And it's awesome.
They wrote all the music?
Well, it's a play with music, so they wrote several pieces. And it's so good. Diana and I, we were listening to them. They came to the theater to play the music so we could hear it for the first time. We were like in tears because it was just so good. And it's going to be such an awesome show in the Cellar Theater, which is our basement theater. And that's coming up in early in the year. But we also have a show called Nina Simone for Women about Nina Simone's life, and inspired by her song For Women. And it's set in 1963 in Alabama during the civil rights movement after the church in Alabama was bombed, killing those young girls. So it's an impactful play, and you also get to hear Nina Simone's music. So that's gonna be a great one. And then we have 3 musicals: so Pajama Game and Footloose, and we end with a Stephen Sondheim Merrily We Roll Along.
Nice. So where can people find more, like buy tickets, things of that nature?
Yeah,
are these streaming too, by the way?
We're not streaming.
That was a thing.
There was a thing. We are a union theater, which means that we're part of this sort of national professional theater network, but we have a lot of rules. So we can't stream unless we pay all this extra money, etc. So we're not streaming, but you can go to thepublicsa.org, and that has all the ticket information. And also on our socials, we always have discounts and discount codes and stuff.
Yeah, so it's important that people come to San Antonio, wherever you may be watching, to check out these shows. I think one of the reasons, we love doing this show here live from San Antonio, but we have viewers from Philly, from Phoenix, from all over the country, people from overseas that watch, chime in. People got to know about the talent that's here.
Yeah.
There's so much talent everywhere, right, in all of our spaces, but I think San Antonio gets overlooked in some respects to all of the talent, whether it's music, theater, film production, all of that stuff.
Yes, that's a fight I've been trying to fight, and not alone, with a bunch of other arts leaders in town. But it's something that I noticed moving here last year, which is that there was a lot of attention put on tourism, because it's the most visited city in the state, with the Riverwalk and all the culturally specific offerings and fiesta. But what's happened is a lack of investment in local artists. And I even I was talking to a local leader the other day, and they were saying, if you want to go see Chicano art, there's like no place to go see it. You can go see murals. Yeah. You might see a gallery opening, but we don't have a museum to see San Antonio artists' pieces.
Yeah.
We are the only, as I mentioned, we have lots of community theaters, and they're all so wonderful. But we are the only professional theater company. And by that, what we mean is we're starting to pay even better wages, but we're paying weekly wages to try to make sure we're paying folks equitably, so that at some point people can make a living being full-time artists.
Yeah.
Here, right. And we're the only ones right now on that path. We're hoping others will also join us, because it's the reason that the symphony was struggling and the other arts institutions struggle is, it's hard to keep artists in town because the attention and the respect hasn't been given to our local institutions, to those artists, to keep them here. And it's a really a hard and long-term fix that doesn't get solved unless people just start coming to San Antonio and seeking out the local art institutions. And by that I mean, for example, the Majestic is great. I love it. It's Broadway shows.
We love the Majestic.
I love the Majestic.
So don't take this the wrong way.
No, I don't want anyone to take it the wrong way, because I really do love it. I go see all the shows. But it's also a theater that pays, New York to produce shows, right? Those are the Broadway shows. So if we're really wanting to cultivate San Antonio artists and talent, it's really important that folks go to the local performing arts institutions. And not just ours. I'm talking all of them.
Yeah, so we have a hyper woke audience that watches this channel with regards to the arts.
Oh, yeah.
Whether it's, DJs, whether it's, painters, whether it's dancers. Mickey Sweet chimes in and says exactly when you're talking about paying people a living wage, so folks are being able to, take care of themselves and their families, right? Not work 3 or 4 jobs all at once. Shelly Chance chimes in and asks, are you all still an equity theater? I believe the answer is yes.
Yeah. I'll be on. So for those of you that don't know what an equity theater is, Actors Equity Association is the actors union. And I'm a member, actually, of the actors union. I had to put my membership on pause because I'm a producer at an equity theater now. So I can't participate. I can't vote. But I've been a member for 15 years. And it's important because all of the regional professional theaters around the country are union theaters. So if we ever want to get to that place, which, by the way, of the top 10 largest cities in the country, and I know there's like a discrepancy on whether or not we're one of those cities, but if you Google
definitely
it,
one of those cities.
If you Google it, we're up there. We're the only one without a professional regional theater. I'm talking places like Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Portland, all have professional
they all have
theaters,
one, really? Wow.
And we do not. And so we are the closest thing to that as a small professional equity theater. Why is that important? That means we're on the path to starting to pay livable wages to more and more people. Here's the thing, it is my opinion, and I've been very honest about this, that our theater went professional too fast. Mm-hmm. Because what it didn't do is say, where will we find the money to make it sustainable? It's not enough to say we're going to do it and then change the theater to professional theater overnight. If in 5 years, everyone's going to be out of a job. And that's sort of where we're at right now. And, I also want to say this, highlighting that I'm a Latina leader of a predominantly white institution, because what often happens is we get put in leadership, and then we're in these situations where we're going, oh no, things are falling apart, and suddenly it's, see what happens when you hire a Latina? I don't want that to happen to me. So I'm trying to be really transparent about where the arts are, what my assessment is of the arts, industry in our town, because our theater went professional too fast. And it gave people the impression of this really fast growth and success. And now post-COVID, when audiences are slow to come back to performing arts, not just theater, but concerts and, symphony and other events, we're finding it really hard to build back our audience. we're lacking money. And so for those of you that don't understand theater, what that means is our small professional theater used to, we have to hire a certain amount of union contracts based on the percentage of or what the size of our budget. Well, our budgets have decreased significantly, and we're in active conversations with our union about what that means. It means that we have to hire less union actors for now. So we're still a union organization. We still operate under their rules. One thing we're trying to do as an institution too is make it so that it doesn't matter if you're union or non-union, people are going to start getting paid the same. That's going to take a couple of years, but we're already closer this season. We're going to be even closer. I hope we're going to be even closer next season once we see how this one turns out. But it certainly is a situation of we're dealing with the impact of COVID on our finances and trying to figure out how to move forward. What I want to say is, though, that we're committed to being a professional theater and figuring out how to invest and establish the creative workforce in San Antonio.
So this is, listen, hats off to you, because this is a big responsibility. The theater is, under the, a spotlight.
Yeah.
Everybody knows the theater. If you're from San Antonio, if you're involved with the arts community, I mean, this is a huge place, right? I mean, you've got to, keep it upkept, and there's a lot of people that are looking at you, looking at the theater, looking at your board of directors, so if you're watching this, how are you supporting, right, as well? Because I think, I'm involved in the community, you're involved in the community. We talk about leadership, and that's one thing, but we got to have buy-in from the community as well. So if you're watching this, I would recommend, figure out a way to support the theater in any way that you can. We're reviving, this theater post-COVID, where the selection of shows has been great. You mentioned American Mariachi, which was the first time that an all Latino show was to open at that theater ever, correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a big deal.
That is a big deal. And in San Antonio, it's ridiculous that it took 100 years. In fact, it surprised me. I didn't choose the show for that reason. I chose the show because I thought this is the show I want to open my season with. And then afterwards, I said, I have a feeling this might be the first one. I didn't want it to be true. I looked through the entire list, because we have a spreadsheet of every show since the theater opened. And I even Googled some titles just to be sure, like, oh, maybe this one was a Latino show. Nope. None of them were. And so it was a surprise after we'd already chosen it. So yeah.
So it's a diverse set of shows, right? I mean, we're talking about all, different types of shows, musicals, hiring local talent, people that are really skilled at what they do. And so, buy a ticket. Get out there and donate.
Buy a ticket.
Yeah, get out there and donate. If you know someone who may be interested in supporting, sponsoring, partnering, with the public, let's get in contact, right? You can DM us, you can comment here. We'll get them connected with Claudia. That's a part of the fun of what we do here at this show, right? We get people connected. And I know you're about doing business.
Yeah.
You're about partnering. You're about getting involved. I know you're involved all over the town. What have been some of your highlights since you've been here? You've been here almost a year, right? Being involved in the community. I know you're involved with a fellowship right now with the Area Foundation. Congratulations.
Thank you
on that.
Thank you. Yes, I'm in the San Antonio Area Foundation Equity Fellowship with other Black, Latino, and Indigenous leaders from around town. That has been really fantastic. One of the first things I did when I got here, and again, this is not to praise myself or anything. This was a surprise to me. Because our theater talks a lot about the history of the building, and we've been here 100 years. So I said, so who was here first? Who are the indigenous peoples of this land that is that we talk about? And there had never been a land acknowledgement done for our space and our company. And that was one of the first things that I did when I came, connecting with the American Indians of Texas, and adopting a land acknowledgement, and still trying to figure out how we can continue to support the indigenous community, particularly artistically, and their voices. And it's a journey. I feel like we could always be doing more. But it's, that was one thing that I was excited about. But so many great collaborations in town, and trying to figure out some new ones potentially for the next season.
Well, I think they're spouting up, and we've got people watching, people that are involved in the theater community, and people are cheering for us and want us to do well, and even those that don't, right? Because there's got to be some people out there. We wouldn't be doing what we're doing if there wasn't any haters out there, and I hate to even bring that up, but let's be real. Not everyone is cheering for everyone. We would like it to be, but sometimes, as you mentioned, right, you've got some people who don't really have your best intentions for whatever reason. But the sure way and firebrand way to win them over is just by doing dope work. And that's what we do here at VodPod. And I know you're doing a little bit of it at the theater as well. So hats off to you. I've seen some of the work that y'all are doing, and it's just been phenomenal. I mean, some of the sets, the talent. I understand you've developed like a cast of local actors that are going to be residence actors.
Yeah. So that was an idea that I had coming in because, back in Los Angeles, I was part of a couple of theater companies, and they were our theater community, our theater family. And I was so excited to come here and to be able to cultivate that again. And, post-COVID, things had been shut down. Everyone was in their own homes and away from the theater, but also our theater burned a lot of bridges in the last several years. So when I got here, it felt so cold. And I said, I think what this space needs is a deliberate effort to develop an artistic community. And there are so many people that care about our theater and so much talent in town. So we launched a resident acting. It's a company. We call it a group because people were confused by that term. What does company mean? But it's essentially the actors that are our home team, who are some of the faces that you're going to see on our stages. And we're also investing in them, giving them free workshops and classes, and building community with them and some of the other folks that we're bringing into our sort of network. So, that's an exciting program that we've established.
Yeah. So the airwaves are buzzing tonight. Guideline, you didn't pay for these views, did you? That's a joke, by the way. We got Annalisa Leos chiming in. She says, dope work is happening. So congratulations. We know Annalisa. We hope you're doing well, you and your family. We got Stephanie Acosta, my homegirl, who is the resident yogi for the state of New York, watching. So shout out to Stephanie. I hope you're doing well. Listen, we're just having a good time tonight. I got to ask you too, by the way, really quickly, do you got any good husband jokes?
Like that he says?
I don't know. You said you were going to roast your husband before we got in here, so I just wanted really quickly. I hate to put it on blast, but I wanted to ask. Any good dad jokes? Any good husband jokes?
He tells a lot of dad jokes. I don't think I have any husband jokes. Is that sad?
That's all good. That's all good. So tell us something about yourself that we wouldn't know. Like, do you like sports? What are you listening to? What's your favorite taco?
Oof, I do not like sports.
That's okay though. Houston just won the World Series though.
I know. What's funny is I texted my sister and I said, so what just happened? Did something big happen? Everyone's posting about the Astros, and she's like, yeah, we just won the World Series. I'm like, is that like the Tonys for sports?
There you go.
No, I don't know much about sports, and that's actually how my husband and I connected. One of our first dates was Super Bowl weekend. I was like, are you gonna do something? And he said, no, are you? So we went to the beach while everyone was Super Bowling. But another, I guess my favorite taco is a quesadilla.
There you go.
On a corn tortilla.
There you go.
But also I don't know, it's something some folks might not know is I've been on TV. I've had a few roles here and there when I was still performing. So you might have seen me on something.
Well, you've got an impressive bio now that we think about it. I've read you've done dialect coaching for some big names in Hollywood. How did that come about?
Yeah, so I went to an acting school at a prestigious sort of acting school in Minneapolis. And it was my first year in acting school. My accent teacher noticed that I was really good at picking up accents and doing the phonetic work. I think, I'm bilingual, so I have an ear for sounds and language. And she really inspired me to keep training. And she took me under her wing as a mentor. And then I left for Spain one summer and studied linguistics at a school in a summer program in Spain, so I could figure out how to work on it bilingually. And when I moved out to LA, I just started coaching people, like one-on-one coaching, which eventually meant that I kept getting recommended, because it's all who you know. And before I knew it, I was getting recommended to celebrities, doing big movies. And then I got a job teaching at the Stella Adler Academy of Acting as the head of faculty and speech, teaching accents there. And it all happened at the same time, where then suddenly I got represented by an agent, and I started getting placed in movies and TV and film, coaching accents and even language consulting in some places. So it was a really cool job. In my head, I was like, this is gonna be my day job, so I don't have to be a waiter while I'm trying to be a performer. But for a while, it took over my career, because one film that I did took me for 5-6 months in Latin America.
Wow.
So I actually had my agents drop me during that time, because they said, you're not here, you can't audition. But it was, I got to work with some pretty amazing people and on some pretty cool projects.
That's fun.
Yeah.
You got to think about, hey, that's what's, purpose-driven work. And it's not about just being next to celebrities, right?
No.
I mean, there's much more than that. But
also, once you meet a lot of them, you're like, they're just people.
Yeah.
With insecurities and personalities and quirks and yeah.
I think about that all the time. You know, we've got a friend like a friend or an acquaintance that was nominated for the Grammy for Best New Artist. And someone was like, well, wasn't he a jerk when you met him? I'm like, well, everyone can have a bad day, right? Everyone can have a bad day, right? It's not saying he was a jerk. Well, maybe he was, but who knows, right? We don't know them that well.
Yeah.
But we know them a little bit, right? We have friends in some spaces, but, you know, that's a good point that you mentioned that, you know, but, you know, on the topic of, you know, Latinos and mainstream Grammys, Bad Bunny was nominated for like best album overall, right? And he's an all Spanish performer.
Yeah.
And so that's a big deal in the news right now in the headlines because we talk about the culture being mainstream and people just loving the culture, right? And Bad Bunny, who was in San Antonio recently, is taking over in that space as well. And he's also, you know, doing things from a place of like, you know, promoting love, right? And promoting openness, which is sorely needed in our communities, right? Amongst men particularly, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I just think Bad Bunny's just amazing.
I think so too. And I wish that, I mean, I don't think any industry is perfect, but I wish that the TV, film, and even theater industries kind of were able to, you know, have that kind of representation. I think it's trickier because our mediums are more visual and there's a lot more assumptions and discrimination that's made based on the way people look, whereas the way people sound, we kind of the entry point for that kind of art, music, is a little bit different. And it's I think there's still a lot more work to be done. I wish we had like a Bad Bunny of TV film.
Well, who would that be though? I mean, could it be someone? I mean, who's the closest person? I understand George Lopez has a show coming out. Is he doing a show now? Or
well, there's lots of people doing amazing work, like, you know, America Ferrera and you know, Tania Saracho, who's from South Texas and had her show Vida on Stars. And, you know, there's a lot of, my friend Fanny Veliz, who is a really awesome leader.
I know Fanny. Is it Fanny out in L.A., her and her husband? What's his name?
Exactly. They started Avenida, which is...
What's her husband's name? I can't think of his name.
Oh, my God. Fanny.
Yeah, Fanny's, you got to be watching. We're going to send you this clip.
But these are my good friends. And why am Nelson?
Nelson Grande.
You put me on the spot. And I was like,
but it's good for you. You got it.
Oh, yeah, Fanny, I know you, Nelson. If y'all are watching, they're my good friends.
Yeah.
No, but I'm really proud of the work they're doing. And she's just such a kick-ass leader. I've known her for a while in LA, and she just really said, we're just going to make our own table. They're not inviting us to the table, so we're going to make our own. And they're doing amazing work. So there's a lot of people that are doing the amazing work. I just think, I don't know, there's a lot of reasons. I guess we could say that Latinos get erased. Part of it is our proximity to whiteness. A lot of our people look white, so they get included in the numbers. Like, see, we got Latinos, but we don't actually see them represented. And the other thing too is I think they just sort of forget about us unless they are telling very specific stories, like the trauma stories. The drug stories, the gang stories, etc. And they forget that we can just be people, moms, dads.
Exactly. Man, I'm glad you said that because, you know, representation is important. And part of the reason we chime in on it is because, you know, Fanny has been one to remind me and remind a lot of people to talk about, and it's not just her, but it's a lot of people, yourself, that are bringing this to the forefront, is that our people are not represented, but we're consuming, you know, the media way more, right? So we're, you know, buying the movie tickets. We're subscribing on Netflix, right?
Yeah, we're one of the biggest buying powers in the country.
And our shows are being canceled, right? When we just really wish we had a show, right? I mean, it's funny because, you know, our people really desire, for a lack of better terms, and I found this to be true, and I want to hear what you think. Our people want to see ourselves depicted on stage as we truly are.
Yeah.
As champions, as heroes, as leaders, as inspiring people.
Yeah, I think that's where American Mariachi was successful. It was about a family. And I also think that's why, like, Father of the Bride, the new one on HBO with Andy Garcia and Gloria Estefan, was so popular because it's just about like a family.
Come on in. He's coming in. Oh. We're gonna bring this chair in here. I think we got someone coming in here? Bring them in. If we got someone coming in, tell them to come in. We want to see them.
It?
I don't know. We got someone busting through the door.
My husband, is he coming in?
Who is it? Are they here? We'll get to it though. Let's you know, and that's the thing is like our people want to have fun. They want to. We got Laura Garza. What are you doing here? Laura T. Garza, what are you doing? Come on in here. Get in here, girl.
I
You gotta have
just
a
screamed
seat.
like a crazy person.
Come on in, have a seat. We got a mic for you too, girl. Come on in. You never know what you're gonna get here at VodPod. We had to surprise you. Come on in, have a seat.
So
Grab
Laura
your
is
microphone.
the reason you and I know each other.
Yeah, and I'm glad. Thank you so much for getting us connected. How have you been, girl? What's been up?
Just busy, living.
Here, let's
the
get
life.
you on this mic.
Yeah, of course. Just busy, living the life as always.
So what are you up to these days? I hear you're at San Antonio College.
I am the new theater coordinator and faculty instructor at San Antonio College now. So that keeps me plenty busy, but still running Teatro da San Antonio. Going on our 7th season now. And so, yeah, just been keeping very busy, but really happy to have Claudia in San Antonio. And so when I heard she was down here, I was like, I got to get down here, especially with 2 of my favorite people, so I can come and talk to you guys because, yeah, this was definitely a connection that needed to be happening. Yeah,
I'm glad you're here. Look at you, look fabulous. Your
know,
hair,
the hair.
the earrings.
Thank you.
I mean, my goodness. Thank you for jumping in here. She came in last minute and says, "Hey, I missed the show." We're like, "Girl, look at the flyer.
I know, we're
the
like,
show's
it's
on
tomorrow."
Tuesday."
Y'all, that's how busy and crazy my
believe you,
brain
girl.
has been. I was like, oh my, I thought it was Tuesday. Yesterday, I thought it was Tuesday. I was like, I missed it. And they're like, no, it's today. And I was like, yay. So yeah. That's,
We said, no, we're going to have the show all over again. Come on in on Tuesday.
let's
We're
do
gonna have
it.
the show
Do it
for
all
you.
over again.
But I'm glad you were able to come in and highlight the work that we're doing. You know, we always talk about having, you know, our people in the community, from the community, people that have our best interests
Absolutely.
in mind, doing the work, you know, connecting with other like-minded people, bringing other people to the forefront at the table. You know, you mentioned Teatro Audaz. This was a connection at the public, and we're continuing to do that work.
Yep.
And so talk a little bit about Teatro Audaz, what the connection means, you know, and why that work is necessary.
Well, Teatro Audaz was started, like I said, almost 7 years ago now, by 3 Latinas who were just disheartened by the lack of opportunities on stage or in the director's seat. And so we said, let's make our own, right? And so we did, but not only for ourselves, but for people like us, for our community, right? And it's grown exponentially. And in that first year, we were able to get a partnership with the Public Theater, and we were in residence there off and on for a couple years. And we've been with them pretty much off and on since then. And then Claudia came in here this past year. And in this last year that she's been here, it's been just a really great transition and wonderful to see some of the changes that are happening. She's such a great supporter of us, and we love having her around. You can tell the atmosphere is just different.
Good.
And the conversations that we have are really interesting because Claudia is not afraid to sit down and have real conversations and just speak truth, right? When so often in our society today, a lot of people won't speak truth, right, about what's really happening. And that's something that we really appreciate about Claudia.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
and it's hard. Listen, you know, we talk about, you know, getting degrees and fellowships and leadership training. It's hard to be a leader, right? You got to have uncomfortable conversations sometimes,
Yeah.
right? Which sometimes it's easy to avoid or pass the buck or send an email, right?
Yep.
I mean, can you
Yeah.
talk to me a little bit about, you know, how you build up that muster, right? Where do you get that skill? It's a knack to be able to communicate in those ways, you know, sometimes.
Yeah, and I feel like even now when it's the really hard conversations, having to, you know, talk to someone about a conflict or let them, you know, go from work, I would say I still have to prepare my heart for it because
Yeah.
I am try to model the kind of leadership that I hope, you know, I can model the way I would like others to treat me and to behave at work, which is to not to care about people. So I do, and I care about my staff, and those sometimes I really have to prepare myself emotionally and spiritually to have those conversations. But in general, I feel like what I found as a leader is the only way forward is to be absolutely honest.
Yeah.
To say I don't know, to say I messed up, to say you're right, I'm wrong in this moment. Thank you for letting me know. Like, you know, I can fix that. And I think that then also takes off pressure of expectation of perfect, or we were supposed to behave a certain way, and allows us to have real conversations. And, you know, sometimes the receiving folks aren't ready for that kind of direct communication and honesty. And I found that most people are.
Yeah.
receptive to it. Because the alternative is what? Tension and nastiness and conflict.
Yeah, we don't need any
Who
more of
wants
that.
that?
No.
But I think it really takes doing some spiritual work of caring about people and checking myself and, checking ego and purpose. What is my purpose? And am I doing the right thing? And I know that that's not a journey that all leaders necessarily believe they should take on.
Yeah.
Because the old style of leadership is a little more hierarchical, and one way is this way and you get punished. But yeah, I think I learned a lot of that from my spiritual upbringing and growing up in church and watching my dad as a minister and my mother as a servant leader in church. Even though I might not be a churchgoer anymore, but that really taught me how to lead in a different way.
So what do you do for your me time?
Do
you have any?
time?
I mean, yeah, you know, I hope you would have some.
I'll tell you what I did. I just put up my Christmas tree.
Well, that's
I stayed
good.
up till 2 a.m. I was like, I need a creative activity. I need to do crafts. I also have
There you go.
ADHD. Full disclosure. I like talking about my neurodivergency because it'll normalize it and people won't
Yeah.
feel like something's wrong. I think it's what makes me a better creative.
Yeah.
But I need to always have a project or a craft. Right now it's Christmas, a tree. I'm doing the decorations. I made little sliced dried oranges like I saw on TikTok and making garlands.
Yeah.
But that's what I do for my me time is crafting. Over COVID, I was doing pottery.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's always something. Like
I think this is a conversation we had just the other day, right? We were talking about how Claudia and I mean, we both talk about how we're really great at giving other people grace, right? And showing them how you really have to care for yourself and give yourself grace. But when do we do that for ourselves, right? And then we have to like let other people know, hey, sometimes we need that too. Just because we might be leaders of our organizations or whatever. Sometimes we need it. We need it. Hey, we need to step back. I made a mistake, or I did this, or I did that, and I just need some time right now. Yeah, and finding me time is so very hard, especially for you. I know, especially with the company that you're running. For me, I'm running the company, but then also having the full-time job on top of that, and then family. We both have family. Being a woman leader is so difficult, and that's something that we don't talk about enough. Being a leader, being a woman, Latina, it's so difficult because we have that family on top of it to take care of, and then that expectation that we're held up against, right? And sometimes, it can get contentious, and so you have to kind of like take a step back. But I think me time for me is like, if we can, it's like we need to go away, go to the beach or something. But usually it's just at home with the kids, watching TV. My son, like just right now before he called me, he's like, Mom, when are you coming home? I want to sit and watch TV with you. Can we watch a movie? And I'm like, yes, maybe I'll be there as soon as I can. As soon as this thing is over, I will be there. So, but it's just things like that, just those little things matter.
Quality time with the family.
If you can get it.
Yeah, but you also mentioned something good too, and that's grace.
Grace.
Right? We need to give each other grace.
Yeah.
We need to give each other
It's
forgiveness. We need to give each other empathy.
Yeah.
As a whole, right? I mean, it's unfortunate, but just human nature is quick to judge, right? Quick to, be negative sometimes, right? And I think, giving the grace, giving the care and the delicate, sensitivity to our brothers and sisters is much more needed,
Absolutely.
in today's day and age. So I'm glad that you stated that.
Absolutely.
And the other thing is, let's not forget about Thanksgiving.
Oh, yeah.
And listen, here's my thing. Everyone loves We were watching TV the other day, Christmas Story, right? The Christmas Vacation. I love those movies, right? Great films. But what happened to Thanksgiving, right?
Yeah.
Are we not grateful as a people, right?
Oh,
We've
yeah.
jumped right to Thanksgiving.
I know, right? I know.
Or no,
right?
right to Christmas,
Right to
I should
Christmas.
say.
Forgot Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do y'all think about that? I mean, not that we need a day to be thankful, right?
Yeah, I
we
think
know.
I have I don't know. I've got conflicted feelings about Thanksgiving, knowing that right the way it was painted for us growing up is that the Pilgrims and the Native Americans got together at a table, and I'm like that is clearly a false narrative.
Absolutely.
And so I can't go with I can't do a Thanksgiving post anymore without being like, but first we have to
Correct.
identify the real harm that was caused on the indigenous people. Because I think it's not talked about enough. And then on top of that, yes, sure, it's a day of thanks, but it's interesting what we do with our sacred days and practices that we are starting to decolonize and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I like it. We're going to be with the family, but
Absolutely.
I think I didn't grow up celebrating Christmas, so that's my deal. Is that now that I
Really?
do celebrate it, I love it.
You love
Good
it.
for you. I'm glad that
Christmas was always big at our house.
Well, see,
and
that's the thing.
Thanksgiving too, though. It's always an opportunity for us to get together
Yeah.
with the family, right? So familia Familia es todo, right? Familia is important to us. So if we have an opportunity to get together with the family, we're going to take advantage of it.
Yeah.
You know, us Mexican families, that's we're, we're going to take advantage of that for sure. But yeah, definitely, I totally agree now that everything has started to this whole decolonization. It's like, okay, wait, let's take a moment to really reflect on what this means. And it's hard to kind of come to terms with that, right? But I think at the same time, if you can just like think about it as I'm spending time with my family and I'm thankful for the things that I've had throughout this year, and maybe kind of try to change it into a different kind of Thanksgiving Day than what we used to think of what it was when we were children. I think that's the whole shift of mind that you have to do.
And I'm glad. Go ahead.
Oh, one thing I've been trying to dive into too is like, how do we honor it in that practice? So one thing that I've started acknowledging is that a lot of Thanksgiving food is indigenous food. It's the potato, it's, the corn, and it's also black food, from black history, because macaroni and cheese was created by a black ancestor, not one of mine, but of the black community in African American, I should say, because it was a descendant, an actual slave of, I believe, which slave owner was it? I think it was a George Washington or Thomas Jefferson.
Yeah, it could be.
There was a really wonderful Netflix documentary called High on the Hog about the impact of, or how American food is essentially African American food. But that is our true history.
She always comes out with a great Netflix series. I'm always like, okay, I gotta put that down on my phone. I have so many that I list on my phone from things that Claudia has said, you gotta watch this. You gotta watch this. I'm like, okay, that's next on my list.
That's all good. So so you mentioned being at home with the family watching television. I mentioned it as well. We mentioned Netflix. Yeah. Let's give some recommendations for our last bit of the show. If there's any recommendations, any shows, Broadway, off Broadway, any Netflix series, documentaries, any films that people need to watch, let's give them right now, because we got a ton of film viewers that are interested in this. So let's hear what you got.
Listen, I haven't seen the new Wakanda yet.
Ooh, Wakanda
We just went to go see it.
But
I took the kids. We finally went.
Is it
yes.
amazing?
It was really good. It was really good. It's long, so be prepared. It's long. Go to the restroom first. But definitely.
But I will say that I got to work with Dino Tuerta, who played the indigenous character in that movie, on a film in 2014. And I am so excited to see him rise in the international stage, because he is just he was such a good person when I worked with him, such a kind person, so talented. And I had heard he told me about his struggles in Mexico as an indigenous, one of the more indigenous looking actors, and the amount of discrimination there was in Mexico over there. Like literally there was a system that paid people according to their complexion color. Because the people in the novelas who looked more European got the most money. And I just couldn't believe how much struggle that he had to overcome being an actor, because he was so talented and also just such a good person. And to see him rise up, now I'm like, y'all, I'll go see it. I'm going to go see it. I want him to just keep rising in success. So that's one. But I don't know if you have any other recommendations. I mean, I watch things all over the place. So.
I just finished watching Paper Girls on Netflix. I liked that. That was kind of cool. My sister had recommended it. Paper Girls. It's about these girls that are paper girls in the 80s, and they deliver papers, and then they get get thrown through time, through a time machine. So if you like that kind of stuff, if you like Stranger Things, if you're that kind of viewer, then you might like Paper Girls, because I like that kind of stuff. So I was like, okay, sci-fi, that kind of stuff. That was kind of cool. But yeah, shows. Don't you guys have something coming up soon?
Well, yes, I mentioned Christmas Carol opens next weekend, so come check out our website so you can come see our shows. Yeah. And then other, I guess, shows around town. There's a lot of good theater that you Google.
We have a show. We have a show opening. Yeah, we do. It runs December 19th through the 23rd. La Pastorela Audaz at Woodlawn Point. So tickets will go on sale soon, probably by the end of this week on teatroaudaz.com. And so that's the kind of programming we do 24/7, all day, every day is all Latino, Latina, Latinx, Chicano, Tejano, whatever you want to call it, however you want to, we're all about it.
It's all over the panoply of American identity. And shout out to the Wampanoag, the people of the Northeast. Shout out to the Tapilam Caltecan Nation, the Apache people.
Yeah.
Shout out to the Mayans,
Yes.
right, that are depicted in the Wakanda Forever
Yes.
film. Shout out to all the people, the beautiful people representing the culture every day wherever you're at. We're coming to the end of our show, so we got to give a big shout out to everybody that was watching. We have a steady cast and crew of people supporting the show. We've got Guylan producing. We've got our young man, the intern who can dunk a basketball with his eyes closed. We've heard. We'll give the closing words from Laura and then Claudia, and we'll take it home that way. So what say you? Let's give it to the audience here.
Oh, just thank you for having me. It was really a pleasure being here. It was great seeing you. It's always a pleasure talking with you. And with you, Maximo, I'm just so glad that this connection was made because these are two of my favorite people in the world. So come check out Teatro Das, La Pastorela Das.
We're going to put the website in the comments.
Yes, please do. And same here. Thank you so much for having me. I think, I still feel new to this city, even though I've been here about a year now, but it's been so good meeting everybody, but also spreading the word about the work we're trying to do, because the truth is, I moved my husband and my kids here because I love the city, and I love it even more than now that I live here. And I want it to be a really wonderful place that we can all keep, taking advantage of with all the cultural offerings. So the more y'all can support the arts, including come to our theaters, buy the tickets. They're not expensive. Your tickets, our tickets, not expensive. And we're doing good work, and you're supporting the arts. And it's, if you care about business and economy, the more we have arts in town, the more we're going to draw in that business, the more, creates robust cities. So I think it's just important for you all, engage with whatever arts you're interested in. And thank you for having me.
Yes, that's our show, and we're only 1 minute over. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week, folks, here at VodPod Media. Guylan, take it home. Woo!